Welcome to Encounter Grace, everyone. We're glad you're here. My name is Jason McKnight, and I'm here with Ben Hendricks and part 2 of the 3-part series on the stages of parenting with my beautiful wife, Susan McKnight, the guru of parenting, never made a mistake in all her years. Let's put her on the pressure.
Honey, oh my goodness.
Come on, let's make it tough. All right, so last time, part 1, we're talking about the 4 stages of parenting, and you're saying, wait a minute, it's a 3-part series. Okay, yeah, because part 1, we talked about discipline stage or the discipline era or season, which is from 0 to 5 years old, give or take, where kids need to learn that there are consequences in the world. There is a right and a wrong, and if we can help it, plus their development is there at that stage where when they can get that, they move into the next stage. Now, as parents, we don't know their stages. Like, I didn't get a booklet when I left the hospital. And so this is kind of a helpful thing. And by the way, this is Susan, having read some different authors. She is the one that always reads on parenting in our house, and I read the underlines, and it's a wonderful thing.
Sometimes
I read the underlines, but we always talk about it on the walks we take. So I learn a lot. Now we're into the next set of years, the elementary school years, give or take, maybe a little bit into middle school. But these aren't the discipline years as much as the training years. And then we'll get into middle school, high school, and into college, and those are coaching years. That'll be part 3 episode. But honey, tell us a little bit about what you mean by the training years.
Well, this is age 5 to 12-ish. So obviously, right when your kid turns 5, now we're in the training years. But 5 to 12, and one of our friends called these the golden years of raising kids.
Yeah.
There's a lot of freedom that your kids are going to have. There's a lot more independence. They can go get their own breakfast. They can take a bath or a shower on their own. You don't even have to go in the room, Ben. It's going to be amazing. There's so many things they can do, but they still want you. And they still need you for different things. So that's why they're the golden years. No years are easy as parenting. But that's what I thought. This is great that our friends called them the golden years because they're really a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
And the hormones haven't kicked in yet.
Exactly.
The sin nature is there, but the hormones aren't.
That's right. So these are the years when we as parents need to and get to do a lot of explaining. We explain the why behind the rules and the expectations. So we train them while we explain. So we help the kids gain the skills they need, the values they need to succeed in life, the skills we want them to have in public. We train them for those in private. So we practice everything, table manners, social skills, conversation manners. We practice with money. What do you do when you do a little job for us and you earn a $1 bill? Well, you save 10%, you give 10%, and you have fun with the rest.
They get their scissors out and cut up that bill.
That's right. We train them how to clean the house, how to clean up after themselves. You're already training Harper that, but it's going to be even more in these years from 5 to 12. You spend a lot of time doing that kind of stuff. You train them and how do you finish a job? You started emptying the dishwasher. We got to finish it. That's what we do in our home. We finish our job. So when they're 18 years old, you're going to realize the things that you haven't trained them well in. And it's a lot harder to have those conversations with them at that point, to say, you can't be chewing your chips at a table with all these people around just, so loudly. They're not going to take that as well.
Hypothetically speaking.
Right. So you help them now in these training years practice to help those things become a habit for them.
Yeah.
So you're going to train your 2-year-old, of course, not to run out into the street. But when they're 6, you'll be able to explain to them a little bit more the why and help them understand, well, you weigh this much and that car weighs this much. So when that car comes around the corner at 35 miles an hour, you're going to help them see what could happen. You would never say that to a 2-year-old per se, but you help them understand, well, you just never know who's coming around the corner. A bike might even be coming around the corner. You train them then, how do you look both ways? How do you carefully, cautiously walk across the street? It's going to only help you, set you at ease as a parent, knowing they know how to do this dangerous things. They have to keep learning and growing. So in the training years, you're really doing the why behind the what. You're explaining the why behind all the things you've been teaching them before now.
That's really helpful because, I mean, again, not to go too far back, the last stage, but that's kind of where we are. So it does feel like we are talking a lot about the what.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's encouraging to know, oh, there's a point where we get to go into the training, into the nuance. Because it really is like Harper Hudson, here's what matters. Here's what we value. Here's what
Right.
we think is important. Here's what we do. Here's how, like, and to know that kind of the training years is kind of moving into and here's why we do that. And here's a little bit of how we do that. And here's for sure how we don't do that.
Right.
Because, yeah, right now we're just trying to train, like, a quick story. I mean, just the other day I was trying to teach Harper, this is how we clean up. And then she saw me sweep some food up with the broom in my hand, and so she had the idea at dinner that night. She was going to help sweep up some food. What she thought was when we clean and we're moving food around the floor was she could take her mashed potatoes and smear it across the floor. So we're getting the what.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
We've got a couple of years till the how, right?
Uh-huh.
So thank you for the encouragement. We're
Yes.
eventually going to get there.
You're eventually going to get there. That's exactly right.
I mean,
That's exactly right. And we know, of course, there's still consequences to these actions, but there's a lot more explaining to the training. Here's what we do. Here's how we do it. And now let's practice as you understand even the why we do it.
yeah, because as we come out of the earlier years of their ability to interact, and they know a little bit more. Yes, I do this. No, I don't do this. And they still rebel sometimes and choose the no and all that kind of stuff. Well, then you can invite them into the next level as they're 5 years old, 7 years old, 12, 10 years old. And you're inviting them into the world as it is in a new way. So yes, there are consequences, and that foundation has been laid. And now you're showing them the kind of you're like in the Wizard of Oz, you're putting the curtain back and seeing why there are those consequences.
Right.
Those consequences aren't arbitrary.
Right.
They're actually
Right. For
in the
good
moral
reason. Mhm.
framework of the universe or in the physical framework of the
Yeah.
universe.
Yeah.
They're just there. So the car coming down 30 miles an hour and it's 2,000 pounds, it is going to clock you. Now then get it.
Right.
And when you talk back to adults, it's going to show disrespect. And so, that's not the way we do things.
Right.
And so there's a consequence to that. But also it's not honoring Mrs. McGillicuddy.
Right. It's always Mrs. McGillicuddy.
I
I
know,
love it.
She's everywhere.
She is.
And she's either great at something or terrible at something,
Right.
depending.
Yeah. You just never.
If I'm driving or
depends
not.
You know,
Today.
when we were talking about this like earlier, it was right there, and you had just said it. It was something I'd never put together before, and it was actually really helpful because, again, eventually we're going to enter into this. Like I think we just like I grew up playing sports, so practice was everything, and we constantly did this because why? You're getting yourself ready for the game, right? And so like I've never thought like you have to practice table manners, like.
great.
My mom and dad didn't just expect me to get it. They're like, no, this is how we do it. And every night I'd try to put my fork on one side. No. It goes on that side. Oh, okay. Or like, there's a tons of that. Like, what are some other examples? Because I need to hear this to go
Right.
ahead and get ready and
Right.
figure out our game plan.
Yes. Yeah, that's great. You do need to decide in your home what kind of manners do we want our kids to have, and then just practice them. In our family, it was really big. I haven't done this well but in my family growing up, to put your napkin on your lap. So when we wouldn't do it, my dad would just come out with, Susan forgot to put her napkin on her lap. It's so dumb. But I mean, we thought it was hilarious at first. And so we just learned to do it. Or if somebody had their elbow on the table, bend, strong and able, get your elbows off the table. So you just
sounds
need
like
to
camp ministry.
decide.
Come
Yes,
on.
yes, my dad did do that in the early years. But you need to decide, what do we want our kids to do, and call them up to that. My dad always acted like the Queen of England was having dinner with us, and we just needed to learn how to do that. Well, I might not be that well trained for the Queen, but I did learn a lot. And I mean, even at a dinner party the other night, Jimbo Perry was coming to clear the dishes away. And he said, if your fork is at 4:00, then I'll pick up your plate. I'll know you're done. He's still training us as adults. So we're all like making sure we get the fork in the right place, like you were talking about. So, but we want to train them. How do you greet someone? How do you look them in the eye? You shake their hand firmly. You ask a question of them to show your interest in them. How do we be polite as a guest in someone's home? Put your napkin on your lap. Don't talk with your mouth full of food. Don't dominate the conversation. Be sure you ask them questions.
That's a big one.
And have it be a conversation rather than just a monologue.
Mm-hmm.
How do you interrupt? Mary Henderson did a great job of this with her kids. She would be talking in the gathering hall after church with another adult, and her kids would run up to her. And you know how, you might not know that. Well, you do know this already with Harper. She might not say all these words, but kids will run up, Mommy, Mommy, and they need something, like it's big. It's not really big, but they need something in the moment. She taught her kids to come up to her when she was talking to an adult and put their hand on her arm. And she said, then I'll know you need me, and I'll politely get to a stopping place in my conversation with the adult. And then I'll say, excuse me just a minute, and I'll ask you what you need. Well, that was polite to the person she was talking to, but it also taught the kids, life isn't all about you. You can't have your needs met, immediately all the time. If it's an emergency, clearly, but it's never
She'll
an
see
emergency.
the blood on the head.
Yes. But I thought that was great.
Yeah, that's beautiful because it's that form of communication so that there is a need, and then it's the teaching of the patience and the honoring and respecting of the other person, and the knowing that mom is gonna triage it properly,
Right.
and trust. I mean, that's a whole lot of training in that one simple practice.
Right.
I just kind of got yelled at
Right. Yeah.
as a 6-year-old. Stop interrupting.
Right.
Like we didn't have that, and I mean, I'm joking,
Right.
my sweet mom.
Right.
but you boy, that little hand on the arm is a way that we can help our kids learn all that all in one.
And you're going to just stumble into the things you're going to realize you need to train to. Like, I remember one time, Andrew might have been in 4th grade, and he went over to a friend's house for a play date, and I went to pick him up, and he and his friend decided it would be the best idea to go hide from us. Well, 20 minutes later, I was infuriated because we were late to something. We were making this family late to their plans. I felt like a fool because I couldn't, get my kid. And I realized, I haven't taught him. When I say it's time to go, you come out and you be respectful. And so it was a hard conversation. But after that, when we said it was time to go for the kids, they knew it was time to go. So we got to train. Now, it might be a temptation to think, great, these are the years I get to talk their heads off. And, because I'm training them, I'm teaching them. But you're not going to be talking all the time. But these are the years when they're going to need to understand the why behind the rules and the expectations. So take the time to train them and help them get it and make it fun.
Well, that's just it. So how else do you make it fun? Well, like when you play a game with them, and now there's a board game and there's dice or there's cards to pick up, sorry, or whatever, well, now you can train them how the game works, a little bit of strategy, because that's kind of fun, but also how to win graciously, lose graciously, how to deal with those emotions, like they took my spot on the board.
Right.
How do you navigate that? And all of that is an opportunity for mom and dad to help our little ones grow in resilience.
Right.
So early on, when in the discipline era, the 0 to 5 years old, don't touch the outlet, you'll get zapped. And so we have to grow in resilience that way with a dead end. Now we're helping them grow in resilience, but we're playing the game with them. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we beat them to show that, and sometimes they beat us because we let them or because they actually do. Mm-hmm. And there's just like they're seeing how the world works. Mm-hmm. Somebody else also said, take your kids with you everywhere. You're running an errand, take a kid. Mm-hmm. Just put them in the back seat, put her in the back seat. You're going to Lowe's to pick up this, that, and the next thing. Use it as an opportunity to be with your kid. And then they start, we don't need to protect our children from all the things of life. Let them be in it with us. If you're out, like, does that, and that's training. I mean, it's a little hard to schlep the 2-year-old, but once it's just crawling in and they know how to buckle themselves in, man, and boy, there's a lot of times you stop at the ice cream shop.
Yeah, you definitely did that.
Well, so I agree. And I was thinking the exact same thing, like kind of that life is a lesson, like taking the opportunities kind of wherever you are. I mean, we and I'm doing this stuff in the wrong stage, but like we just try to do that with Harper. Like one of the things
Absolutely.
that I've learned along the way and I don't even remember who said it, but it was catchy when they said it, like vision leaks,
Mhm.
like, but your kids need vision. Like that is that first stage is the what, like,
Mhm.
and like this is what we think matters and what we hold to be as important. And we often will say that to Harper, like, hey, we're going to do this because this is the right thing to do,
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
this is what we do here.
Right.
And we just constantly say those things. Probably we're like a noisy gong to a point, but it's like over time it's gonna ring true to her, I think.
Yeah.
At least we hope.
And you think too, in things like going to church,
Yeah.
I mean, they see you do that regularly in the discipline years, but then they can understand a little more in the training years, and they just see you constantly doing that. And if they see you loving it, I think they're going to love it.
Yeah.
If they see you in the fellowship you're enjoying before and after services, they're going to start realizing this is a really fun place to be. And if they see you coming home and talking about what you learned on a Sunday morning, then they're going to realize, oh, there's a really lot. So even in that kind of thing, we're training our kids into who they can be and how
Yeah.
they can thrive in life.
Well, because that's just it. We're training them into something.
Right.
We're not just
Yeah.
training them for training. Remember, the goal is relationship with our kids as they're formed in Christ, or winning them to the way of the Lord. And just, you cannot win them to the way of the Lord by being just a lecturer in front of a
Right.
blackboard or a whiteboard or a screen. Like, it's inviting them into life with you.
So I'm going to put you a bit on the spot, but I'll answer first.
Okay,
Kind
good.
of one of my thoughts.
He'll go
I'll
on the
just
spot.
agree.
Yeah, I just want to, I'm very talkative. Like, I'm just curious, like, why do you think like this isn't as common as it maybe should be? Like this idea of saying, hey, I'm going to be intentional and use kind of whatever life throws at me, whatever the situation is, as a way to invite my children into learning something, into the vision, into understanding the way that we do things, or understanding the way the world works. And so maybe it's like, as I'm just kind of processing that, like maybe I think you alluded to this, like Jason, that they were being overprotective, like, and we're trying to go like, well, maybe they don't need that lesson yet. Maybe we're like almost not undervaluing, but like we don't think that they can handle it yet. Like maybe they're not smart enough to handle that yet, and so we protect them from that. Or sometimes I think, and I do this like with our students, like I just don't want to always be annoying.
Right.
Like we kind of always have we have that joke person that like in our mind of like whatever happens, well, like it's kind of like almost Wilson on Tool Time. You remember that guy? Like where it's like everything that happened. Well, that reminds me of a Greek philosophy, and it's like, and then here's the story, and here's the line, and here's the thing we need to take away. And so I'm just curious, like, I think we all have a place kind of in our life with this where we're like, I think I can do better, or like, why am I not doing? Like, I for sure do already. And just for some of the parents who are like, I don't know if I want to take that step. Like, what do you think might be hindering? Like, did I sum it up perfectly, or do you have another comment?
Well, I just don't know that we live intentional lives.
Yeah.
And I think if we can start saying, I want to be intentional in how I'm doing these different things. And to me, I'm not a big, I just think in the mundane things of life is where we can be intentional in helping our kids learn and grow. And I think a lot of times people are looking for something big and splashy to make it happen fast. And it's just not. So if we can just step in and be intentional in the normal things of life and the normal attitudes we face every day and the normal running of errands and whatever like that, I think if we can not be looking for the biggest thing, but just live into what's today one thing I can do, or how can I do this to be more intentional with our kids?
Yeah. And I think because we're busy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just easier for me to zip out there and do something and get home. But when I take the 7-year-old with me through the aisles of Lowe's, they might stop and say, well, what's this, Dad? And it just maybe is not going to be the 16-minute errand. It'll be the 28-minute errand.
Yeah,
and
it's true.
gosh, those extra 12 minutes are going to change a life. But what is it going to do for me if I don't, I'm just going to lie down on the couch later with those 12 minutes.
Yeah.
Right.
I may as well invest them in my kids. Yeah.
Well, and I really just wanted to ask, because I'm just constantly trying to figure out, like, everything that we just, all the three that I came up with, the two that y'all or more that you just said, I'm like, oh gosh, I've done all those. Like that's got to be the reason behind so much of what I've done. So I'm thinking it, look, if I'm doing this, I wonder who else is. And so,
Right, right.
I mean, thank you for just, I think that clarity because I really do. I think the Lord has invited us to parent like intentionally. I mean, I know He has, right? And so to be able to use intentional moments like going through Lowe's or going to the grocery store or whatever it is, like it's saying like I can use this as an opportunity to invite my children into a lesson, into to see something in a new way.
Mm-hmm,
And I mean, how many times could we have said this already? But that's what Jesus did, like constantly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it made a pretty big difference.
Mm-hmm. It's great.
So the beautiful thing in the last 50 years is child development research and discoveries in how kids really are wired. And so we're learning things about how, and maybe moms always kind of knew them and intuited them and stuff, but dads probably needed to read someone with a PhD say it instead of believing their wife. But anyway, for 2,000 years of human history. Okay, whatever. But the growth in the, hey, here are how kids develop or how anyone grows and develops. Here's that kind of stuff. The other beautiful thing in the last 50 years is the growth of the homeschooling movement, which has impacted everyone because everyone is reminded, even if you don't homeschool, you're reminded that actually God invites us into the formation of our children, and it is never meant to be subcontracted. And not even parents in public or private school now think that. They just aren't called to homeschooling, but they know they're called to helping their kids form. Both of those things together is why we have the help we have.
Right.
From the first stage in this paradigm, for instance, just to use the first stage of the discipline years, teach them how the world works. The second stage of train them how to use it. We're inviting them into the practice of the skills it takes to succeed. It kind of reminds me as we sort of land the plane here in episode number 2, part 2 here to move on to part 3. It reminds me of when you learn a game or a sport, you have to learn the rules of the game. And if you don't know the rules of the game, you can never thrive. So soccer, basketball, hockey, whatever, baseball, you got to learn the rules. Well, that's the discipline years. You're teaching them the rules of the game or they'll never thrive. And you better be teaching them the right game. The training years then is you're at the team practice. You're learning the plays. You're learning how it works and how to work together.
And I see where he's going now for the coaching years.
I have no idea.
Coming next.
Ben, I had him hooked, honey.
I was in.
He was.
I was getting over the mind.
So join us next time as we get into the game with the coaching years. We've done the learning of the rules and we've done the learning of the plays. And now we're going to go on to play the game. Thanks for joining us. Part 3 is coming up.